game design, we have three major categories of mechanics. Just like in painting, we have three primary colors, so red, blue, and green. In design, we have three major shapes: triangles, rectangles, and circles. In sound design, we have three major sound waves, so the sinusoidal wave, the triangular wave, and the quadratic wave. In game design, we have three major genres. So we have adventure, in which we measure the player's ability to reveal information about the game, so this can be the game plot, mysteries, solutions for puzzles, so on and so forth. We have strategy elements, which we measure the player's ability to manage resources. And we have action elements, which we measure the player's reaction time. So for instance, in rhythm games, we have purely action games, so Ozu, Guitar Hero. Some of these have some adventure elements, so for instance in Guitar Hero we have new guitars, new players, new characters to play with, a story that we progress through. These are some kind of adventure elements. We have strategy elements as well, so we have those specials in which we have to decide when to use them, but it's basically a action game. And when we talk about adventure games with elements of action, we usually apply these elements to the combat system. And for that, instead of having a turn-based combat system, in which we basically just have to select what character we have, which character we want to attack, in these games where we have action-based elements, we usually apply a hit and a hurt box system. So you probably already heard about hit boxes. So these are the areas in which a damage will be applied to a player. So probably if you watch some videos about fighting games, especially Street Fighter, Tekken and stuff like this, you probably already heard about these hit boxes. But we also have the hurt boxes, in which are the areas that this damage will be applied to. So hit boxes are the active element and the hurt boxes are the passive element that will receive the damage. I will show you how you can create those in Godot engine. So here I have the project that we are going to create in my course. So if you want to know more about this course, this will be an adventure course. So we are going to learn how we can create interactive elements, so interactive objects, how we can create a dialogue system, a quest system, an event system, and some power and upgrade system that will be unlocked based on the completion of some quests. So if you are interested about this, I'll put a link in the description with a freebie for you, so you can copy and paste the scripts that I'm going to show throughout this video. But in this project, this is the final project of the course. We have a quest in which you have to go to Mars. We're going to talk about the quest with this NPC. Basically, Ares, which is the guardian of Mars, got berserk, and we have to defeat him in a battle. And this is the combat system that I use in the course. So we have some characters. We have a system where these characters can defer damage to each other, in the case of the spaceship through bullets, or in the case of Ares through a butt attack. So this is very simple system, but it gives everything we need to create some cool battles for this game. So the way that I did that was to implement a two elements system. So we have the hit area and the hurt area. In Godot engine, we have two kinds of physics objects actually. We have bodies, which prevent collisions, and we have areas, which will basically try to see if objects are overlapping with each other. So bodies such as the rigid body, the character body, the static body, the animated body will prevent overlapping between objects. So when two objects overlap, the physics simulation system will try to figure out another position for both of these objects so that they are not colliding, they are not overlapping anymore. But with areas, we have the opposite of that. Areas will actually measure if two objects are overlapping between each other. So this is exactly what we want. We want to see if the hit area is overlapping with the hurt area so that we can apply the damage. And in that sense, we have two elements, two objects that we need to work with. So the first one is the hit area, which is the active element of this system. So the thing is, I will suggest you to choose a specific and exclusive layer for the combat system, so that other systems such as the interaction system, that is a system that we have in this adventure project, doesn't interact with the combat system. So areas, the interactive area doesn't overlap with the hit area or the hurt area. So this will prevent that these systems overlap. Choose a specific layer, and in the case of the active element, the hit area, it will not be on any collision layer, but it will mask the second layer or the layer that you chose for your combat system. So in this case, it will only collide, it will only detect overlappings with objects that will be on the second layer, on the second physics layer. And to ensure that these objects will not be detectable by other objects, not even by other hit areas, I disabled the monitorable setting here. This will prevent that other areas also detect the hit area. And to detect that it collides with any object that it is overlapping with other objects, I use this area entered signal, because the hurt area will be an area 2D as well. So if you open the script, it's a very simple script. We have a hit landed signal, which will communicate the damage that we dealt to the hurt area, and it has the damage. And here I want to give you a tip, because in this specific case, my system is very simple, but if you want to create a complex system in which you have complex damage calculations, so if you have something like elemental damage, or even different types of physics damage, so piercing, slashing, crushing, or stuff like this, I will suggest you to, instead of having a integer based damage, to use a custom class, so a resource probably, that will bundle all this information about the damage itself, so something like a hit data. Especially because here, after we detect that we are overlapping with a hurt area, and as I said, we are sure that we are detecting a hurt area because in this layer there can be only hit areas and hurt areas, but hit areas are not detectable, they are not monitorable, so we are left with hurt areas. And when we interact with a hurt area, it will check if the theme is the same as the hit area, and if it is going to emit this signal based on the calculation that will be done by the hurt area itself. So you can see that this is the active element. It is this element that will call a method on the other element. And another tip that I want to provide is to, instead of using an enumerator variable here, as I'm doing, I will suggest you to use a string type instead, because this will allow you to have multiple objects that will deal damage to each other even though they are on the same team. So if you want to add, for instance, friendly fire, right? So in my case, I have this limitation because enemies are from the not player team, and two enemies will not deal damage to each other. But I would suggest you to use a string instead, because this will be more flexible if you want to add this kind of interaction between two actors, right? So, or even between objects that are, for instance, a hazard. Let's say that you have a flamethrower, and the enemy will pass through this flamethrower and will be damaged by this flamethrower. In my specific case, I will only have the option to do a neutral damage, but I think that is better to have a string-based variable, because this will allow you to have all sorts of interactions between these objects. And the other side of this system, of course, is the hurt area. And as you can see in the inspector here, the hurt area is the opposite of the hit area. So the hurt area will not be monitoring anything because it's the passive element. So the hit area will be monitoring and the hurt area will be monitorable. And as you can see, the hurt area is not masking any physics layer, any collision layer, but it is inside the layer 2, which is the layer that I chose for the combat system. So it's only on the layer 2, but it's not masking anything. If you want to understand how these collision layers work in Godot engine, I will add a video about that in the card, so you can add it to your watch list. If you add it right now, it won't stop playing this video, so do it right now. So after this video, you can watch it, because this property here, this category, the collision layer and masking, is a bit confusing for people that work with Godot engine, but I will explain that in that video. So the hurt area, on the other hand, will basically be used by the hit area. It is the passive element of this system. It emits a signal with the total damage dealt to itself based on the hit area that called the hurt method, right? So the same thing here on the defense property. If you want to have a more complex system, like more complex combat system, where the player has some different kinds of armor. So for instance, if you want to add more, if you want to do more damage to the head or to the feet of the player, or to the character, I would suggest you to create a custom class. Probably I would suggest a resource that will bundle all the data in regard to the hurt area. So something like hurt data. So the type of armor, if it is the magic or physical armor, the element of the armor, so fire, air, water, earth, so on and so forth. Or if you want to add physical types like heavy armor, light armor, or something like this, I would suggest you to do that instead, because in my case I am only using an integer number, so this is not very complex. It's basically just it's basically because I want the players to do more damage to some parts of the body of some other characters. So for instance, on the bosses, typically on the head, I want players to do more damage than on the body. That's basically it. And the same thing, if you want to make this more flexible, instead of using an enumerator here on the theme property, I would suggest you to use a string instead. And we have this method, the hurt method, which will receive a hit area. And if you choose to go with the more complex system, I will suggest you to receive the hit data instead of the hit area here. And this is where you're going to make all the calculations, the equations, to get the total damage. And as we know, since the hit area is going to use this hurt method to communicate what is the total damage that it dealt to this hurt area, it should return the total damage here. And also it emits a damage signal, so it can communicate to other objects the amount of damage that was dealt to this specific hurt area. This way I can use it together with a health resource or a health node that will take this damage and decrease the damage, the total, the current health of the character. And this is it. So if you want to actually get access to all of these easier, I created a very simple page on Notion that will allow you to basically just copy paste this these classes on the script on your project. So this is the page that I created. You have this toggle list here with the hit area and the hurt area scripts and some instructions so that you can understand how to use these specific components. And at the bottom of the page, of course, you have the subscription forms so that you can subscribe to the mailing list and get notified when I release the Godot Adventure Essentials course, in which you are going to learn how to create an adventure game in 3 days. So we are going to learn how you can tell stories through a dialogue system, how you can create a progression system so that players will be engaged in your game through a quest system, and reward players with score, so money or some other resources that you use on your game, and with skills. So these skills are going to be unlocked by the completions of some quests. So for this video, that's it. Don't forget to subscribe to the mailing list. I'll put the link in the pinned comment, and that's it. Thanks so much for watching, keep developing, and until the next one. See you there.